Hi, Michelle. It recently wrote and launched the book Broken Tales about the Titanium Cowgirl. And we wanted to speak with her about her journey and the accident and how it led to her getting in contact with Cantech and Body Protector. So yeah, I was reading your book there. I have it on Kindle, and
thank you.
It's not just about having an accident and recovering from it. There were so many other themes that ran through it. It was I came across lots of similarities I found in dealing with postnatal depression and depression. How it's not just the physical trauma, but the emotional trauma, getting over that, and how confidence plays such a large role. And I guess using the Cantech has given you a bit of that confidence back and the ability to get back, partly the ability to get back on a horse.
Absolutely. I first of all, I appreciate that you got my book, and you mentioned, a struggle that you'd had yourself. And I think in my case, there's that saying, if you fall off a horse, you have to get back on it. In my case, it was literally a horse, but in my book, I talk about black Sharpie lines that all of us have experienced, that moment in our lives that you get a diagnosis or an event happens that forever marks the difference between what was before and what was after, whatever it is. And you made a brilliant point on that yourself. For me, it was an actual riding accident, but you mentioned, when something takes your literal and figurative legs out from underneath you, and you find yourself trying to figure out who you are now and how you deal with the initial healing. And then, like you said, it's physical and emotional. And what do you do to put yourself back together? Hence why I called it Broken. And the people thought I was crazy, and they would ask me, well, you're not going to ride again, which you can appreciate as a question that the answer is you'd be nuts if you do. But I can't imagine my life without riding. And when I decided that was what I was going to do, I had to find a way to deconstruct it and figure out, okay, how can I do it in such a way that I do get that confidence back? And I started researching body protectors, and some friends of mine who are into eventing, and I do Western riding, and there tends to be culturally in Western riding, people tend not to wear helmets and tend not to wear body protectors. And I also think in the States, more than, you're laughing because it's just in the UK, I think people are much smarter, and it is your head, for heaven's sake.
Yeah.
So it was a new world for me. And so I started exploring it, and somehow through that I came to Cantech and Wendy. And I really appreciated the way that she broke it down with actual physics. My degrees in science and my master's degrees in biology. So I appreciated that someone really broke down, this is the physics of an accident, and this is how energy is translated through your body. And once I started talking with her, and actually the chapter is called Birthday Suit, which is kind of funny if you know what a birthday suit is, but
yes.
Same thing there. So my conversations with Wendy led to me having one of the Cantech body protectors made. And when I get it now, I zip it up and I feel like, okay, I can do this.
Yeah, so I read that, and it was like you've got it back in black, so you feel like the ninja that you hope that you were going to roll out of it when you were having the accident. So for some people that don't know what happened, and I guess I just wanted to talk about it a bit and a bit of a background. You live in California, you're from a farming background, and so have always been around horses, but yet you were a horse rider, but not, as you call it, a practitioner, I guess, of horsemanship. But that's something you're now very much a student of, and a continual learning. And as well as that, that's part of the sort of therapy, is the understanding of how humans and horses as well as dogs and other animals interact, and having that understanding and communication and association is
absolutely
better for you and for anything coming in everyday life, never mind just in riding. But it was just that you were it happened back in January 2011, and how you just gone out on the off chance for, you know, for a one-off ride, and that like an accident, you don't know when anything's going to happen. Right. So if you just want to tell everyone, you know, how this came about, if it's not too difficult.
No, absolutely. And like you said, Gail, it was winter time, and I had been to it's interesting now because we're in the middle of fire season, and like I said, we were just evacuated. So it's the antithesis of winter time. But that fall, I had been to a clinic with my horse that I was riding. Her name's Wish. And it had been really rainy, and so the ground had finally dried up a bit, and I thought, well, I'll just sneak a little ride, you know, before it becomes dark. And I also had written in my book, and you mentioned it, it's serendipity of life. I mean, you never know walking out the door. You have your thoughts and your plans of what that day will look like, and obviously this one changed everything for me. And you talked about horsemanship, and we had been riding, Wish and I had been riding, and there's a path around our property that we call the superhighway, the animal superhighway, because the deer walk on it and the turkeys and everyone. And it's a shorter path, and I thought, well, I'll have just time for this. And something startled Wish, and I knew that, and I thought, okay, we can get this handled. It's fine. In retrospect, I knew that she wasn't over it, and I just kind of let it slide because it was getting dark. And then we were going fast on the way home, which I was enjoying. And the serendipity was that a rabbit came out of the brush and ran right through her legs, and she went up in the air and sideways, which felt like simultaneously. And you mentioned the ninja thing. In my mind, I was thinking, okay, I've got this. I'll just do this nice roll and dismount. And my choice was, I chose to dismount because there was a tree and a big brush that we were heading in towards. And I don't know what I was thinking that I could pull this off, but it obviously didn't work out. And I fell and landed flat on my back. And so the horsemanship part of it comes that she gave me signals, and I chose to ignore them. And I think if you're honest with yourself you mentioned earlier, relationships with other people, with dogs, with horses, especially with animals, they're so clear, and we need to listen to them. And so rather than look back at that with any kind of animosity towards her, you know, I felt like she gave me the message that she wasn't all the way okay, and I didn't pay enough attention to that. So as I've continued on in these years since then, I've really, really integrated learning verbal communication and paying attention to that, and the importance of having your horse's thought with you. And there's a man named Harry Whitney that I love to ride with, and I'll be riding with at a clinic in October, who that's really the foundation of his horsemanship, is have the horse's thought with you, and the rest of it follows. So that's kind of a brief story of that infamous day.
Yeah, it's quite interesting when you say about how, you know, you need to listen to your horse, and it's like people that can be translated into everyday life. You know, it's not just listening to something. You actually have to hear the message. You know, you might hear it, but you're not actually listening for what it actually means. And that, as you say, goes for animals as well. And with that, it's you were saying about how you're learning to read signals. And so it's not just, you know, sort of verbal signals, it's also your non-verbal signals. I've done some like coaching sessions, and how you react with people and interact with people and colleagues and like that. You can learn a lot because you're not just giving off verbal signals, it's non-verbal signals as well. And trying to be a better listener is tapping into both of those. So it's interesting how horsemanship sort of techniques can relate to everyone's life every day. So it's really interesting to hear you talk about that. So even from reading the book and talking about, I have ridden horses, but I'm not it's not an everyday thing. But I took so much more from it than just your story of your accident and your recovery, but how all these lessons you've learned can relate to anyone and everyone in their everyday life. And, they're quite inspirational in that way. So I thought the book was brilliant. And so coming on from that was how you actually got up. Well, got up when I say you actually crawled away from that accident. And okay, as you said, with hindsight, that and your neurosurgeon didn't think that was the best thing, but it's your fight or flight aspect. You want to get home. It was getting dark, and you wanted to make sure Wish was okay. So it's like I'm not in a good place. I want to get home. So the fact that you actually crawled, it was a half a mile or something to get home. That takes
at least. It takes, I don't know, I said I'm not very smart, but I do have a lot of grit. So I admit the fact that I tend to do things the hard way, and that wasn't very smart. But like you said, at the time, your whole body's infused with adrenaline.
And again, it's like, it's a sort of a maternal instinct. You wanted to make sure that Wish was okay and got her home and got the gate in. And you say something non-horsey people don't understand that. Why? I find that strange because, I've had a cat years ago, and then my sisters, they have dogs, and they're part of the family. So it's no different in that way. So even just getting yourself home, but getting the horse home, and that going through your head's quite admirable as well. You're worried about the horse, never mind yourself. And as you say, when you fell off, you heard a pop. And that's kind of a signal that something's a little bit wrong.
I wrote, for being a biologist, you think I would be smarter than I am, but apparently not. So I've told the whole world about all the things I did wrong, but that's part of the lesson too.
Yeah, I think people need to listen not just to other people, but to themselves and to their own bodies.
Yes, and your body.
I think everyone.
Especially when it noise.
I've broken a foot and a couple of toes a couple of times. You think I would learn, but no, I still haven't.
Takes a while.
Oh yeah. So you mentioned a couple of times about crossing that black Sharpie line, and so you sort of go from, this is me every day, this is what I'm going to do, I can get up and do this, and then that sort of line came in the ambulance with the paramedics after your son found you and your husband rang 911, and it was like, right, okay, this is different. And then being in the ER room and waiting 5 hours to find out what was actually going to happen. So in that time, what kind of thoughts were going through your head, and how were you able to sort of keep it sort of calm and polite? I think, as you kept saying that you were so polite, and how you didn't want painkillers, I'll never know. But
I already stated that I'm not very smart. I'm overly optimistic, and so when I crawled into the house, I was thinking, I'm not going to feel good tomorrow. And when my husband Pat came home, he said, we need to call an ambulance, and I was like, no, just give me a minute. So whether that's shock with not being very realistic, I don't know, but I was still thinking I'll be fine. I'm just going to not feel very well tomorrow. And then when all the tests were in and the doctor came, he came flying in, he came running in and threw open the drapes and said, put her back on the board, her back's broken. And at that moment, prior to that, I'd been feeling fine, but at that moment, it actually felt like battery acid through my body. Everyone who's had that feeling where it's just like fear just drains and your body just feels cold. And that was, the feeling.
I can't imagine it's not the best bedside manner either to come running in and just sort of shout, she's broken her back, get her on a board.
Yeah.
That's not going to help the situation either.
No.
So from that, Yeah, as you say, you were filled with fear and adrenaline, and you keep saying that you're not smart. I don't believe that, because you know, yeah, true grit,
Oh,
and you say you're a can-do cowgirl, you're a can-do country girl.
Yeah.
Getting home is kind of the more important thing. Getting to safety, that is like a basic instinct. So I would stop saying that you're not smart. I think you know you are. You need to get home. So to get to hospital and then have this sort of brought up, and then you find yourself in hospital for 5 days, which you said that you've been kind of lucky in a way. You know, that's quite a short time, because it's 12 days in total. After such an accident where you broke your first lumbar LI vertebrae. I'm just reading my notes here because I'm not a biologist. And
it's a big one.
Yeah. So you felt like your body was sort of broken in half. So from that, how long was the sort of time for the start of the physical recovery? You know, how long was it? I know when you'd written that you had surgery, and then straight after the surgery you had your physiotherapist and trying to get you up walking straight away, which kind of reminds me of having my 2 kids after cesarean sections. Surgery's big, and getting up and walking is kind of the least thing you want to do.
So. I know, and they're ruthless about it.
Yeah, so you say that like the grit and determination takes to do that, so that's obviously helped you through the whole journey. And so how long
all told,
how long would you sort of roughly estimate that physically it took? And
that's a great question, because the 5 days waiting in ICU, my husband was researching surgeons, and it was such a one of the most complex back surgeries, and I'm so grateful that he took the time to find a surgeon that he felt confident about. And so in that interim, I had to wait the 5 days between the research and then identifying the surgeon and waiting for his schedule. But like you said, all told, with those 5 days, and then I had surgery, all told, it was only 12 days, which is really remarkable. Yeah. But it's like you just said, so my surgery was, I think, 9 hours long. And then they woke me up the next morning and said, all right, get up and you need to walk. And I had written about that in my book. And the thing I'm proud of is that I have 2 sons. So I live in this house full of men. And my husband and my oldest son are complete sports nuts. And it was excruciatingly painful. I mean, you're pretty much fused back together with parts in the middle part of your body, which is rather key. And she told me, my physical therapist said, you know, I've worked with the San Francisco 49ers football team, and, you know, this or that has made them cry. And so I looked at my son and my husband, I was like, that's right, check this out, you know. So it gave me some barometer of, you know, this is tough stuff. And I was so committed to getting out of there, because I just felt so, and the only other time I'd been in the hospital was to deliver my sons, and I had a C-section with my first son, and I thought, I just need to be home. You know, I felt so out of sorts and alone, even though I had lots of company. It was a very obviously tough mental time to wrap your head around what you have to do. And so I had a new physical therapist whose name was Star assigned to me. And I said, what do I need to do to get out of here? And he said, you need to do X, Y, and Z. And so I said, all right, let's do that. So I was very committed to doing everything I could to get out as safely possible and get home. And then I had to wear a brace for 3 months. And my neurosurgeon had said at the time, in a year, you'll be, 100%. And I thought, oh, well, I'll get this in 6 months. I'm just going to double time it. And that was really, Gail, a challenge for me, because I do think, hey, if you just try really hard, you can do this. But it was my body was physically devastated. And it was so much more than I anticipated. And the further I got into it, the more I realized I just feel so incredibly pieced together and vulnerable. And when I also wrote about when I first started driving again, that was terrifying. And even though he had said a year you'll be physically healed, I felt very weak. And I would say it was, I rode again at 1.5 years. So that was kind of my cycle.
Yeah. Because I know when you were saying that the physiotherapist had you doing things that, as you say, the 49ers were doing, and that would make them cry. And by the way, women are tougher than men.
Amen,
I played field hockey, and we are so much tougher.
Yeah.
But you said what they were getting you doing scares the snot out of me, which I love. I think that's brilliant. But and it was a friend of you that was said to you to keep your mind in the middle, just keep it focused on what you have to do. And that's kind of a mantra I try and do after having my sons. I had 2 cesarean sections and a long recovery after them, and then after that undiagnosed PND and then depression and whatever. So it is literally now a mantra of mine is just take it a day at a time, and it takes the time it needs to take, and there's nothing wrong with that. So as you say, you want to get things done because you just want to be home and you just want to be you just want to, but you need to get a lesson that I've learned, and then sounding like that you now know as well, it's you just need to give yourself the time that you need, and there's no yardstick or meter rule for that. Just like having to do those exercises, even that's hard in itself. So you're saying about the physical, your body and having to wear a case, but then the sort of physiology you're talking about, a friend of yours, Mark, Rashad, and then are you truly breathing, which to me is a lot like mindfulness. And I know that's when trying to get sleep myself with the kids when they were younger, taking those full deep breaths, you're so not used to doing it, but when you do, it brings a sense of calmness and serenity and being in the moment. And I guess that's something that the horsemanship as well comes back to that. It's like being in the moment with the horse, the animal, and it's the same with people should really spend the time and take the time to be in the moment, with other people as well. So, and yourself. So, so that focused breathing and it brings restorative and calm, and not only was it important for physical recovery, but for your mental recovery too.
Absolutely. And you said that horses aren't really your thing, but multiple times, Gail, you have said things that are like tenets of horsemanship. And you said, it can be compared to life. And there's a great horseman that I write about, Buck Brannaman, who says horsemanship and life, it's all the same to me. And Mark Rashid is very much the same, in the sense that how you practice in horsemanship is also how you practice in life. And there's another saying in horsemanship that it takes the time it takes. Don't go in there in a rush to get with an agenda to get something done. So I find it really cool that you are picking up on those same things, that they're not separate, that it's how are you a good human? How do you have good relationships with people and animals? And how do you find calm and peace in a world that's, there's 7 billion of us. We're all spinning around doing all sorts of things, that unexpected things happen, like postpartum depression or accidents or losses of spouses or chronic pain or illness. All kinds of things happen to us, but those tools of be in the moment and breathe and simple things in my book was so much about the small things in life that I found I was incapable of doing big things, but I found that my lessons were in all that joy in the small things, like the birds singing or just seeing the change of the seasons or someone calling you out of the blue and saying, I'm thinking about you. Those things in my recovery and in life, I think, are just such valuable lessons. And that's really the essence of my book.
Yeah, that coming from, like I was made redundant as well a couple of years ago at the same time. It all happened at the one time. It was a perfect storm of awfulness. So having read the book, it resonates so much with me, like taking those small pieces of joy and that it's cumulative, it adds up. And it's something that, again, through a coaching session I did, it's like at the end of the day, you should do, and I'm not very good at practicing this, but writing down.
You're not alone.
Bad at homework. Writing down 3 things that have happened every day that you're thankful for, that you're grateful for. If that's like, I don't know, you got the task done that you wanted to, or you met somebody out of the blue that you hadn't seen for ages and spent time, just things like that. And taking the time to enjoy those smaller things just makes us, happier in ourselves, and then obviously, to everyone else. And so, yeah, it just sort of, it totally resonates with just sort of my recovery, and I guess from a lot of other people's. So obviously you've talked about your physical recovery, and you were talking about that you had been, wearing jeans and boots, and then you had to go to wearing jogging bottoms, as we would call them, sweatpants and slippers, and how that was just so annoying. But it was the what was it? Embrace the schlub. Is that how you would say it?
Yeah. A friend of mine at Chrissy McDonald, who is married to Mark Rashid, had called to check up on me, and she has a very interesting background in philosophy and homeopathy and naturopathy and things like that. And so I was saying, no, Chrissy, I've got this time down. I can't do anything, but I should be doing this and that. And she just said, embrace the schlub. And because I was complaining about, I'm just shuffling around in slippers, making this scratchy sound. And she said, now is the time for that, just rather than fight it, like you just said, Gail, rather than fight it. And you said earlier, I believe there's a time, take the time it takes. And I also wrote later that there's a season for everything. And if we fight that season, it just, I believe, makes it harder for us to recover and come back.
Yeah, it's similar to another philosophy or a book that I've read that's been helpful to me, and it's I don't know if you know Sheryl Sandberg.
Yes.
So she's written Lean In, and I'm also a member of Lean In Belfast. And lean into the suck. And I remember reading that's a strange saying, but it's kind of similar, just lean into the emotions that are there, accept them, acknowledge them, and then you're able to hopefully better deal with them and then move on. So all these wee snippets that you've been told by friends and that you put into the book, again, they're so valuable to anyone's journey and not that. So I kind of like that. And again, it was something similar that I had come across. But then you were saying, so conquering my mind was sometimes harder than fighting through my body's recovery. So yeah, it's physical recovery is hard. Obviously, but it's the mental recovery. And so that's kind of how we really liked here at Cantech, how you came across Cantech and the Can Body Protector, and how, it's confidence. You want to get up and you want to do something, but there's always something that maybe stops you. And so you obviously need that little bit of confidence, that little bit of help. And I'm guessing that's where that came from, and then obviously everything else that you would have worn. So how did you actually come about finding Wendy? Like, you're in the States and Wendy's over in Ireland.
Thanks to the World Wide Web. So like I had mentioned earlier, my friends who are more into English writing and cross-country things versus I kind of lived in a world with a bunch of people either doing, ranch riding or Western riding. So I reached out to a friend of mine, my friend Beth, who we've been friends since college, and asked her, what do you wear? And then started doing some research. And Wendy was so wonderful about responding back. I probably had 1,000 questions. Finally, she said, when I really liked everything she said about, energy transmission and all things that make sense to me as a scientist. And so when we were on Skype, one thing that I got from Wendy that I've really tried with my book, and ever since then, like you said, it's not necessarily horsemanship. I really feel like I'm on a mission now to share look, I understand your pain. I understand that you got derailed, and let me walk alongside you with encouragement. And that's what Wendy did. She didn't say to me, no, don't ever get on a horse again. She said, this is what I've made, and this is why I believe in it. And that gave me the confidence, because I really wanted to ride again. And everything that she gave me she was professional, she was kind, she had a great product, she had all the science behind it. And I thought, good. And it was on my birthday, the day we talked. So I kind of felt like, got a new start. And so when it came, it was so exciting to put it on and put my helmet on, which my mother had actually given me one for Christmas. And the first thing she asked me was, were you wearing your helmet? And I had to say no. And I'm also kind of on a mission now. I think in the States, and at least kind of in the venues of riding that I grew up with, is like people in rodeo and gymkhana tend not to, I don't do either of those things, but tend not to wear vests or body protectors or helmets. And I tell everybody, you need to protect your parts. You need to protect your brain. You need to have something on should something happen. And even though there are times now where I think, I'd like to just put on a baseball cap and get out there and ride, which is a good, because it indicates that I've come so far, but I tell myself never, this is my outfit. This is what I wear.
Yeah, so you've kind of got the sensible head on now. I want to go and ride, but this is what I do.
Yeah, put my actual sensible head on. Yeah, absolutely. So I was happy when she and I spoke, and then when you reached out to me, I think really to share that over here, just because my familiarity is that people tend not to wear helmets or body protectors. It's very important.
That's quite, I wouldn't have realized that, having just, watched sort of horse riding or equestrian or cross country. It would have always been on the television in competitions, and everyone would. So to actually sort of hear that, in a lot of sort of horse events over in the States, they don't. That's just kind of unfathomable to me. I'm like, okay, that's just strange. So probably just sort of to finish off, it was kind of very I don't know, literally I can't speak now. Spiritual journey as well. You spoke that, obviously at some points during the night you sort of like anxiety, and it was difficult, whereas during the day you were getting tasks done, and that was bits and pieces, whereas at nighttime, you're left with your mind thinking. And there was just one night that you just said, help me. And you said that you heard the 4 words that really helped you. So today you are good.
Yeah.
And again, even if you're spiritual or not spiritual or religious or not, those words I think should be something that everyone say, today you had a good day, or today you're good. And even if it's like, today, no, you weren't good, that's fine, because tomorrow's another day.
Exactly. Yeah, for me, my faith was, what my feet rested on when the water felt like I was really in the deep end or lost in the ocean of what do I do. So for me, that was my foundation. But like you said, whether that is your go-to or not, that my prayer, my cry was, so finally it was just like, help me. I don't have any idea, because like you said, during the day if you're busy, but during the night it's like all I could think about was, what if my hardware pops out, and don't look on the web. That's all I can tell you, is don't look at the problem on the web. What if it doesn't work? What if this? What if that? And then this peace came to me, and it was, today you're good. And I thought, okay, someone who doesn't have whatever your problem is can go outside and never come home. We don't know that. You could get hit by a meteor. You could get hit by a bus. You could, who knows what, fall into a sinkhole. And putting that in those small bites, and you said it earlier, of mindfulness, like today is what I have in front of me, not yesterday, not the past. Today I'm good. And I've found that really resonates with people. And one of the greatest blessings of this journey has been hearing from people say, hey, that was really encouraging to me, even though I didn't have a horse wreck. But just to be that encouragement and for them to say, today I'm good. So when I hear people say that to me, I think, yes, you know,
yeah,
we can do that. Today we can do that.
Yeah, it's nearly, but not quite, going to say worse, the accident, because now your journey and your recovery, you've been able to write this and give it as a gift to other people, and it can help them. Because truly, when I read it, I was kind of expecting to hear sort of a more horse story, and this is what happened, more clinical, this is what I did. But no, it's full of life affirming messages and encouragement and inspiration, and
thank you.
And relates to a lot of people in lots of different situations. So I think it's a brilliant book. And
thank you.
Thank
you.
Thank you. So thanks. I guess we've talked for quite a while, and I could probably talk about loads more. But I'm well aware it's getting very dark out there. And
well, thank you so much for this experience and opportunity. I really appreciated it. And Wendy was right there at the beginning, and you talked about your physical recovery is one thing and your mental or soul or spiritual is another. And for me, and I wrote about this, the first time that I put on my gear, put on my Cantec and can protector and swung a leg over, I could feel like the two broken pieces came closer together. And every time I would do something like that, I felt like they got closer and closer together, like I was being whole again. So I'll be forever grateful, thanks to her and the can protector, to that's what really started it for me, of feeling like I was putting the pieces of me back together. And you said, you know, it's weird to look at and think, if I could rewind, would you take the accident away? And it probably seems like an obvious question that you would say yes. Physically, I mean, I still feel somewhat compromised, but I ski, I exercise, I walk, I can walk. You know, they weren't certain if I would be able to. But as a human being, and as, you know, just a journey of gratitude and gratefulness and being able to share encouragement to other people, yeah, I would never wish that away.
That's quite a fantastic thing to say and have to experience. And yeah, I'm sure Wendy will, when she sees this, will be really thrilled to hear that she's been a part of your journey, and that, you know, her hard work and research has really paid off for the real reason why she did it. And just hearing and sharing these stories is really what she wants to do. You know, she's a horsewoman herself, and she just wants to share, you know, the enjoyment of being able to ride a horse. And then but I think they should be telling more about, you know, it's therapy. Delving deeper into horsemanship, I think everyone should do. So it's been great reading your book, talking to you, and I am so glad that you agreed to do this. And
thank you.
I hope that maybe sometime we can chat again, or even meet, or
that would be awesome. Friends across the world. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, so I just want to say thanks again. Stay safe. I hope that everything's okay with friends, family as well. And I will let you go and have the rest of your day. And thank you so much for this. It's been really amazing.
Thanks. I feel the same way. Thank you so much, Gail.